actually. I totally should. Yeah, we should plan it. Yeah.
It's easiest for you, Rashid, since you're a British citizen, so they can't deny you.
Yeah. Well,
all right, we're live with the Fans in Blue podcast, boys. Gonna go ahead and just say that this is a momentous day. It is possibly the best performance that I've seen by an Indian team outside India. Test series victory in Australia, down for the count, came back, fought hard. They tried everything. They tried the dirty tricks from the Aussie commentators. They tried, the umpires being home umpires, giving them most of the decisions they wanted. They tried the sledging by the skipper and by Labuschagne and the rest of them. They tried the racism from the crowds. They tried everything, but they couldn't shake us. I got to say that, firstly, thanks a lot for joining, guys. Prahlad, Sharath, and Rashid. I'm going to start with Sharath. We're going to go character by character. So I want to start with Shubman Gill. What did that 91 mean to you? What were your thoughts?
I think... sorry.
No, go ahead, Sharath.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, look, I mean, I think firstly, Nick, out of all the entire group, you called Gill out very early, so a good call on that. And I think he's absolutely come true. He is the future. A very exciting young player. I think the maturity and the resolution that he showed in a very, very classy 91, very fluent stroke making. And I think he read the terrain of the game exceptionally well. He knew that having lost Rohit really early, he knew that Pujara was going to bat slow and steady, and that's his game. Gill, I think, played an absolute innings of a life, and he set up the fourth innings chase fantastically. So yeah, Gill gets an absolute 10 out of 10 in my book.
Sharath, I want to follow up with you. There's a theory, which I think what happened was, and obviously the team will not disclose this to the press, but it was fairly obvious that the plan was that Pujara would hold one end up and the other guys would attack. And then when it got to tee, if they were in a position, had wickets in hand, they would go for the win. I think that's the right way to go about it. But do you think that Gill was reckless at all with some of his shots? Or do you think that it's the exuberance of youth, he's just got to ride his luck?
I'm going to give Gill a lot more credit than to say that he's just going to ride his luck, because I think he's skilled enough to make his own fortune. And look, he is playing his second test, and you can't expect the wisdom and experience in someone like that. So I'm going to say that he played his role as the shot maker, as a stroke maker, and being a good counter to Pujara. And he leveraged the fact that Pujara frustrated the heck out of the bowlers, which gave Gill the opportunity to play his shots. I think for the most part, his shot selection was great. His control factor was pretty strong as well. He took advantage, I think, of the fact that the moisture in the pitch on the morning session of day 5 allowed him to get, for the ball to come onto the bat rather well. I'm not saying it made it easy for Gill, but Gill took advantage of that. And I think barring a few occasional shots, he showed very strong maturity. The only downfall was the ball that actually got him out, and he'll regret that because it was a nothing shot. But barring that singular moment of lapse in concentration, I thought he played an exceptional innings.
Prahlad, I'm going to go to you next. What were your thoughts on the short ball barrage to Gill? And this is not a question about whether it was warranted or not, with the tail-enders, perhaps that calls into question the spirit of cricket. But do you think he made the right call by continually going for it? The Aussies are 2 men back, deep square leg and long leg. On another day, those shots could have gone anywhere. What was your thought on that?
That's true, and that's true about any. Sometimes things come off, sometimes things don't. But what's great about the generation of the Gills and the Punts of the world is that they have the confidence to go for their shots, and probably they have the backing of the team management or the captain to allow them to play that brand of cricket. The advantage Gill had, and this was evident yesterday, is that because of his height, he chose very well what he wanted to, and that over to the over from Stark, right, where he got him for 14 runs in 3 balls or something like that, 1 6 followed by 2 boundaries or something. Uh, so I did not find him reckless at all, but I also feel that this generation of cricketers or the younger generation of cricketers have more self-belief to take on the boundary. Even if you place a fielder, they have the faith that they can clear it. So kudos to him.
Rashid, that's sort of the general view going around what Prahlad talked about, the newer generation, the newer India. They are fearless. I personally love the positivity. Do you think that he could have, or he should have reined himself in as he got closer to 100 and thought, hey, here's a chance for me to give 150 not out at close and win the game? And by the way, this is just a thought. This is not necessarily what I think, but curious what you think.
No, I mean, I'll say two things. Kind of one, kind of dive into the question is kind of pose a question back to you, Nick. I mean, you're definitely, as Sharat said, someone who called out Gill not just before this tour, but actually I remember kind of this was probably where you really started singing his praises and pushing for his inclusion in the team was New Zealand and for the World Cup. So kind of would love to know like what you saw in him, obviously before even the team management saw stuff in him. What did you see in him? Because it wasn't just a one-off comment from you. I mean, it was like, you know, you genuinely believed in his talents. And you were like in all the conversations, you know, for the people listening that we were having on our group, Nikhil was the one person who was kind of really pushing the case forward for Pant to be included, irrespective of where he batted. It was, let's find the place for him because he needs to be in the team. So what did you see in him?
Yeah, for Gill, by the way, I think you said Pant by mistake.
Yes,
look, I used to be a believer in textbook technique. Nowadays, I'm not so much anymore. I think the big thing for batting nowadays, what they've figured out is as long as you've got good head position and good balance, those are sort of the two most important things. And kind of having your feet moving the way they described in the textbooks, you know, back in the day, the Jeff Boycott school of batsmanship, etc. That is sort of gone out the window. What is now sort of the more important thing is, do you see talent in someone? Can he back that up by scoring consistent runs? And does he have the basics, which is head position, balance, timing, you know, what they call class when you put all those things together. And I've seen him play in the IPL. I've seen him play in some domestic cricket matches. I just think that he, and also, by the way, the place where I saw him first was in the Under-19 World Cup. I really think that he's the kind of guy who is not going to be a 50s player, or he's going to come and score kind of a flashy, you know, 30 and then get out, like, you know, perhaps like a DK might have back in the day. To me, he's the kind of guy who will score hundreds and he'll score big hundreds. And that's the kind of guy you need at the top of the order, because for too long, India has struggled, you know, overseas because you don't have great batsmen, don't have great opening batsmen. Actually, Prahlad was the one who sort of kind of focused me on thinking that he was more of an opener. I thought he could kind of bat anywhere because I just saw his talent and felt like this is the guy who will, you know, take Indian cricket to the next level, because we've just been lacking, you know, that one batsman. We've got 4 or 5 really good batsmen. We're lacking one more solid batsman, be it the ODI side, the test side. And I think he kind of completes the circle. So that's kind of my opinion on him. I will say that, you know, when he hit that 4th or 5th hook shot, I was a little bit, you know, this is getting a bit too much now. But again, that's, you know, difference between us and sort of the kids who are 21 years old. I'm going to move on to the next sort of protagonist or character here. Sharat, Che Pujara.
I was just waiting, you know. I mean, look, what do you want me to say about the rock, the foundation? I mean, you can't put up a 10-story building without a rock solid foundation. And I think Pujara is that unsung hero, the absolute bedrock of the Indian batting order, right? Pujara was instrumental in getting India the victory in 2018, the first time India's won in Australia. And Pujara was instrumental here. I mean, and that is not to take away anything whatsoever from Gill, from Rahane, from Pant, from anyone else. I think Pujara in Sydney and in the Gabba was absolutely critical in setting up India for the win. Gill was able to play his shots because he had an absolute wall at the other end, was frustrating the bowlers. Pant was able to come in and play his shots because Pujara had already tired out the bowlers. I am a keen believer that Australia has long had a tradition of producing exceptional quality, aggressive, fast, relentless pace bowling. And I think the pace bowling on display in this tour, in this series, was better than what we saw a couple of years ago. Cummins, Hazelwood were relentless. If you actually rate every single ball on the basis of accuracy, line and length, I reckon you'd find Australia's pace bowling the metrics would be off the charts. How could that bowling attack not get India all out on at least 2 occasions? And I think a big reason of that is Pujara. He frustrated the hell out of the bowlers, and that allowed the other batters to capitalize. So I think I can't sing enough praises about Pujara, but he's certainly one very important cog in the wheel. Yeah.
And just going to follow up there with Sharath and then one Prahlad to react to what you say. There's so much been said about his strike rate, which, you know, if you look at it from a statistical standpoint, strike rate has no correlation with averages in Test cricket. And in Test cricket, really, it's what averages that really matters, right? You could argue if you score at 70 with an average of 55, that's better than scoring at 30 with an average of 55. But by and large, strike rates don't matter. But there was so much said by people like Alan Border and Ricky Ponting and who, you know, whatnot. What's your opinion on that? And then would love for Prahlad to respond.
Yeah, look, I mean, I disagree completely about any detractor of Pujara who criticizes him for having a slow strike rate. Pujara's style is to get set in, dig his heels in, defend, play the ball entirely on his merit. He's textbook cricketing batting. And if you look at his innings where he does score over a 50, once he has settled in, he does start accelerating his strike rate. And we saw that yesterday as well. I think by the time Pujara got out, he had a blended strike rate, probably closer to 30. When prior to lunch, his strike rate was 8. He scored 8 of 100 balls. So I agree. There's absolutely no correlation between strike rate and Test average. And I think statistics only tell a certain part of the story, right? You've got to look at what Pujara brings to the table in terms of a stabilizing effect. He's able to achieve that stabilizing effect and create the foundation for the later batsman to follow because he digs his heels in. He doesn't take undue risk. And yes, the collateral damage of that is a slow strike rate. But I don't think India has suffered one bit. And the last point I'll make is this is not T20 or ODI cricket where strike rate is very important and run rate is very important. This is Test cricket. I don't think Rahane should have got out in, I think it was in Sydney Test, out of frustration that Pujara wasn't scoring quick. Rahane played a bad shot. He knows it. And that was not the right shot for that moment in the Test match. And it's got nothing to do with Pujara's alleged slow run rate.
Prahlad?
So my first thought is only Pujara can play like Pujara. And there's no point in comparing him or his style to anybody else, either in contemporary cricket or even somebody who's played cricket in the past, right? In the context of the game, whoever's calling him out for slow strike rate, etc., is not taking into account the role that he's playing in the team. As long as team management has a particular plan for him and he's executing that, I don't think anybody has the right to criticize him for his strike rate or whatever. However, there are a couple of things that I want to say that stood out for me for Pujara. One, throughout the tournament, not a single test match did he play a bad shot to get out. Everybody other than Pujara was either trying to play a cheeky shot or an uppercut or some loose stroke to give away their wicket. Pujara, in the truest sense, put a price on his wicket every single time he went out, which was a big deal. One concerning fact, though, I want to highlight. He got hit too many times for my comfort yesterday. And I think he's so much better a batsman that he should have been able to either sway out of the way or negotiate it slightly differently. Now, the pitch was doing a little bit up and down, everything for every other batsman as well. I was really concerned that he was getting pinged so many times. And now, just to give it a little bit of a different context, one of those deliveries, if it would have hit him slightly worse than what it did, that changes the nature of the game completely. So I'm not questioning his technique, but I'm saying that I was a little uncomfortable that he was not able to get out of the way more consistently because no other Indian batsman was getting pinged as many times as Pujara was. Everybody was given the short treatment, if you may say, but Pujara particularly was kind of struggling a little bit. But to his credit, it shows a lot of grit to be able to take that, put a price on your wicket, and still not give up. So kudos to him for that. I'm not being critical of him. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, and you guys can chime
in. Yeah, that's interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry, that's only one last point. Just picking up exactly what Prahlad was saying, right? We all love it when Pujara saves an innings and digs his heels in and sets up the team for a victory, right? But you can't have that without also having and accepting the way he goes about it. You can't have it both ways. He delivers what he delivers because of the way he bats, and that's unique to him. So my last point I'll make to any detractors about his run rate or the way he faces bowlers, that's his style. And last point, you go to the Australian dressing room and ask them which wicket they would prize the most, and I think you'll have an unequivocal answer. It's Pujara. That's how much he means as a wicket to the Australian team. Sorry, over to you.
No, that makes 100% sense. The only point I would make, just to add to that, would be two things, and would love Rashid to respond. Number one is because he bats like that, he kind of wears the opposition down. And I think, Sharad, and you and I were talking about this yesterday, wearing the fast bowling down, making them bowl more and more overs. If Pant had come in, and even if the score was the same, but the Aussie Quicks had bowled 5 overs each less, you might have seen a very different game out there. I mean, people don't realize these guys have bowled over hundreds of overs in the last 3 or 4 weeks. It is, and this is the most elite level of the sport. Their legs have been pounding on those wickets, on those hard Aussie wickets for the last 1 month. It is not easy stuff. And these are sort of the best in the world, these three, but I would say that wearing them down and just taking those body blows, that's, he's taken one for the country right there. Or let's just say he's taken 11 for the country. The second thing, and this is sort of the more technical thing I wanted to discuss a little bit, is Pujara came down the track a lot to Lyon, kicked the ball away a few times, unlikely to be given LBW. But I would say, Rashid, I was a little bit uncomfortable with the way he was trying to work it onto the leg side, because the Aussies had 2 men out there, guy at short mid wicket and someone at square leg. And a few times the ball went up in the air. Now, he was largely in control, but I wonder if coming down the track and hitting straight, almost like Rahane did, where, it went sort of wide, long on, but straighter, would that have been a better strategy?
No, I mean, the one thing I'll say about Pujara is we should treasure him, value him, and actually reward him, because he's such an amazing test match player. And I think again, the BCCI needs to really put test cricket on a pedestal. So reward him for the way he plays. He's the backbone. He's phenomenal. I think he doesn't, that amazing almost like slap shot that that Kohli's made his own, where he drives against the spin into the offside. We've seen Gill play that, Labuschagne play that a bit. I don't think Pujara has that shot. So I think the way he's trying to negotiate line is just just the way he knows his limitations, he knows his strengths, and he just wants to play to those, which I think is kind of a really smart move. He should probably, and I'm sure he is, kind of going away and practicing against off spin, practicing kind of, a push into the offside to get that one, get away from the strike. But until kind of he's comfortable playing that in the match, I think he should just continue playing the way that he knows best.
That's actually, Nick, you just brought up an interesting point, which could be a segue into another discussion, is how Rahane actually plays Lion. I thought of all the Indian players, my view was that Rahane actually used his feet and the crease for the back foot the most efficiently against Lion. And actually, I think he was able to neutralize Lion the most. Pujara, you're right, did look a little bit at sea against Lion on more than one occasion.
So, yeah. Any final reactions to that, Prahlad, or should we move on?
We can move on. I think so.
Yeah, no, look, I think all in all, Pujara, I mean, as we said, he's the rock and he's a foundation. I thought that was a phenomenal performance. Honestly, one to treasure. Rishabh Pant, you can't say too many, enough good words for that guy, but I'll admit I was one of his critics in the past, especially the way he played in that World Cup final. So I'd gladly admit that I got that one wrong. This guy is going to play for India in every format for several years to come. To do it once in Sydney and score 97, I thought that was a phenomenal effort, great counter-attacking innings. But to come back and do it again and actually take us to victory this time, 89 not out, that to me is a mark of a real cricketer, someone who can back it up, not just perform once. And so I'm going to go to Sharath really quick. Your thoughts on Pant's innings? Is he the real deal? What's your favorite shot that he hit last night?
Look, I mean, absolutely. I think he's a real deal. I've actually always been a supporter of Pant. His wicket keeping needs to improve, and he knows that. And I do think that's addressable. But I think as a batsman, look, he's got the raw talent. He's got the shots, right? I was lucky to watch him live in 2018. I think when he got his 150, and you could just tell that he almost reminds me of a shorter and slightly squatter Yuvraj Singh, right? I mean, he's just got that. They're both lefties, and he's just got that really, really good hand-eye coordination and very strong off the leg side. So yeah, absolutely the real deal. He's the X factor. Did it in Sydney. Did it here in Brisbane. In terms of, look, the only very, very marginal criticism, it's not even a criticism, it's just an observation, is that his shot selection and his risk management, right? And that's what sort of undid him in Sydney from getting a very well-deserved 100 and potentially taking India to a win. And that may have undone him in Brisbane as well. He had a couple of rash shots, the missed stumping from Payne. And also, I think when he was, India was just about 15, 20 runs when he skied Lyon or Cummins. So look, that's just his youthful exuberance. And you would hope that now that he knows that he's got the ability to bat, to make runs where it matters, I think that'll give him a bit of confidence in himself, and also in the fact that he's going to be a regular part of the team. So as long as he works on that risk management side of things, I think he's going to be an X factor. He's going to become the Adam Gilchrist of India.
Prahlad, is he a fast learner? I thought the one thing I noticeably saw in this knock versus Sydney is when Lyon tossed it up wide outside off, he didn't take the bait quite a few times. Is he a quick learner, you think?
Oh, I think he took the fact that he got out and India did not win in Sydney. I think he took it to heart. He essentially dug in yesterday, and when you see the last shot that he played and when we actually won, you saw his celebrations very subdued. He was not fist pumping or running on the other end. He was very composed and collected, as if he had a mission in his mind that I'm going to stay there till the end and make sure that this one counts. I agree with Sharath that he does play higher risk cricket. but that's what makes him exciting as well, and that's what exactly is the factor that makes him able to do things that most others don't. To be able to counter Lion with hitting him against the turn, if you may. I've not seen too many people do that with that kind of consistency as well. He will probably get out to Lion once in a while, but he does put the fear in Lion as well.
Rashid, one of the things that I've again sort of like on the same mode as not thinking about technique in the textbook frame of things anymore personally as well. I've also learned that putting the pressure back on the spinner by playing unconventional shots is the way to go. And I almost thought that he attempted the reverse sweep once. I thought he was going to go for it again, but he surprised us all. And my favorite shot was when he walked outside off and kind of flicked him over, leg slip for four. That was ingenious. And by the way, that's again a hallmark of a great batsman. He does the thing that you least expect him to do. And so your thoughts on that or any of the shots that he played?
He's phenomenal, and honestly, like some of the shots that he's played and Gill played, and this last day of Test cricket is going to be watched and rewatched by like millions of people for years to come. I know all of us are still watching the Calcutta Test highlights once in a while, and this is very much on par with that. That's for sure. I personally think Pant is actually a better Test cricketer, or has potential to be a better Test batsman than a T20 batsman. Because I think he has the shots, he has the talent, and when he doesn't have to manufacture a shot, that's when he's playing his best, because he has such amazing raw talent, sees ball, hits ball. That's kind of when he's playing his best, and he gave himself time in both innings. He didn't go hell for leather from ball one. He got his eye in. He was selective, and for me, the six he hit of Lion when the previous ball hit the crack, went to Steve Smith. He stepped out next ball and just smacked him over long on. Was saying, look, I'm here, I'm stamping my authority. I have no fear of you, Nathan Lyon, and I'm here to win the game. I mean, phenomenal. Like, honestly, like it never, like yesterday, watching the game has never given me so much joy in a long, long time. It was just like I had a smile on my face. It was stressed out, literally stressed out, actually.
Sharath, the one thing that I find is the more I see him bat, and clearly, I'm not the biggest IPL watcher, but the more I see him bat, and especially in these two knocks, the more I feel like he's a left-handed version of AB de Villiers, because he uses his crease so well. If you notice, he hits the ball to all parts of the park. And so, that's all the whole sort of Mr. 360, where he's able to access like every part of the ground. And I think he likes batting like that as well. I think he kind of challenges himself to hit balls to any part of the park, no matter what the line of the ball is. In saying that though, could Nathan Lyon have done more or better?
Look, always right. And look, this is 2020 hindsight talking, right? Look, I think Nathan Lyon's best chance of getting Pant out would just be the classic sort of spinner, bait and hook. Just keep tossing it up, get him to sort of come down, use his feet, and you just hope that he just slightly mishits one and he skies it right. Pretty much like how he got out in Sydney. Pant has incredible hand-eye coordination. He's quite nimble with his feet. And one area of improvement from, I think, the 2018 tour is that Pant has traditionally been very strong off his pads and on the leg, but I think he hit some glorious cover drives and off drives here. So he's good with the square cut as well. So yeah, I think Lyon was struggling, and Lyon was probably just hoping that a bit of bounce and a bit of turn and a bit of over the top aggression from Pant might do him in. And look, that worked in Sydney, and I think. To your point, I think Pant learned from that, and that's absolutely to his credit that he matured up, and he told himself that it's not enough to score a 50 or 80 or 100. He's got to take India to the win, which is exactly what he did.
Prahlad, the other spinner in the group here, was Lyon's tactic of bowling wide outside off stump negative bowling? Should he have not had 5 men on the boundary? It's a test match. You're trying to take wickets. You're trying to win. He also dropped short a lot. Was his length wrong? Like, what's your opinion?
So two or three things about that. So one, I don't think that his line was negative. I think he was bowling that way because he wanted Pant to take the risky path, because he didn't want to bowl in Pant's arc, because Pant was willing to take him on. The second point is that I was a little upset about the fields being back, but then the other point towards it is that Pant could get a few runs away very quickly, and the pressure would have gone down tremendously. So maybe that was playing on the Australian bowler's mind. The third thing I'd say that maybe India having injuries and having to rotate their bowlers kept their bowling unit relatively fresh throughout the series. I think by Test 3 or Test 4, the Australian bowling attack, at least Stark and Lyon, were a little bit jaded, I believe, and I know that they don't have the depth in their domestic circuit to replace a Stark or a Lyon in their first 11, but that could have worked to India's advantage. That they were carrying four bowlers through the tournament who were not fully fresh when it came to Test match 3 and 4.
And how good was Pat Cummins, Rashid? I mean, number one Test bowler in the world.
So I mean, I love Cummins. Like, he ran in hard. He was fantastic. He hit great lengths. I think some of the balls that he got Pujara out to, absolutely unplayable. I think he used the short ball well. I think the commentators were talking about how cleverly he uses the crease, the different release points. I mean, just top class bowler. I think credit to the Indian batsmen. We were facing probably one of the best pace attacks in a long while, in home conditions, on bowler friendly wickets, and the fact that we batted so many overs, we scored runs. Even when our backs were to the wall, people put their hands up. I think for me, there are definitely a couple of things, like we just need to get our bloody bowlers to learn how to hold a bat. Our last three wickets were like literally competition for the world's worst number 11s ever. It's my bugbear. I just can't understand, when you practice that much, how can you not know how to hold a bat? And that's going to be, that's going to take us to the next level. We ensure that, and we saw the difference, right, with Sundar and Shardul Thakur, coming in. That partnership changed the game. We were down and out actually at 180 for 6. We were down and out, because if we had lost a wicket then, we'd have folded for like 220 for sure. So I think that's going to take us to the next level.
Sharad, you're sitting in Sydney. Cummins was able to adjust his strategy, oftentimes bowling off-cutters. He got Rahane quite a few times, actually. Rahane is trying to steer him down a third man. He's countered that by bowling off-cutters, sometimes slower ball bounces, even bringing some of that one-day bowling into Test cricket. Mitchell Starc looked pretty flat, though. I mean, when the ball's not swinging and he's not fresh and not bowling 150, doesn't look as threatening.
No, absolutely. And I think when Australia introspects, which they will over the next few weeks and months, I think they'll realize that Starc and Lyon were the weak points, the chinks in their bowling armor. Like, Cummins was phenomenal. Like, I mean, there's a reason why he's ranked number 1, right? And you can see he comes in, he's fit, he's strong, he's got a great heart. He just pounds the deck every time. Like, he puts a lot into every ball, and he's not just a workhorse. He's a very thinking bowler, as you just said, right? He's got the variation. He bowls fast, and what I was most impressed by was his accuracy and consistency. Like, you see a lot of great fast bowlers, and they'll bowl 4 really good balls, and then you'll have a couple of looseness, right? But Cummins didn't relent. I mean, he didn't give any quarter. Like, and Pujara, I mean, the kind of balls he had to bowl to get Pujara out, that tells you how great Pujara is, but equally how great Cummins is, that he was able to crack through that defense. But yeah, you're right. Starc, I think, Starc had some good moments when he was going, but especially I think the Sydney Test and the Brisbane Test, he wasn't firing on all cylinders. And I think, yeah, that was a release point, right? Cummins and Hazelwood bowled, and I mean, Hazelwood as well, we'll talk about him, but Cummins and Hazelwood put a lot of pressure on, and I think the Indians got a chance to release some of that pressure through Stark.
The interesting thing, Prahlad, and just on this sort of last topic before we go to Tim Payne, Cummins' sort of pitch mat was a handkerchief, as they say, right? I don't think I've seen a bowler in my entire life who's as accurate as him. And you could talk about Glenn McGrath possibly being up there, or maybe even Sean Pollock. The accuracy that Cummins has at the pace that he bowls, I mean, he was cranking it up to 150 almost in some games, in some spells. What makes him number one in your opinion?
I think he's relentless, and he's a very thinking cricketer. So apparently they're touting him to be the next captain for Australia. So that's a big responsibility on a player like Cummins. But I think it could be the right way because he's got a thinking mind, and he's at the peak of his game. And to think about him from perspective that when he came in and carried so many injuries, to come back that strongly and to bowl at this pace with this consistency without breaking down, which is a big deal with the pounding that the ankles and the knees might be taking on those pitches. Is quite phenomenal that he's able to remain as fit as he has. The other aspect about his bowling is that he does not shy away from using variations, and so from that perspective, for me, he's very difficult to line up against, and that's why I feel that he's more lethal than even Glenn McGrath was, because Glenn McGrath was relentless, but he was bowling a particular line length and waiting for you to make a mistake. Cummins can hurry you and make you play the false shot, and trying to manufacture shots against him was what brought Rahane's downfall on two occasions. So he was standout performer across both teams.
Yeah, I still remember 4 for 33 was figures of 19 overs when he came back to bowl. Great segue to Aussie captaincy. My favorite meme, of thousands of memes going around, but was this one by Ashwin's wife, which says, "See you at the Gabba, mate." She's really becoming one of my favorite Instagram people I follow. My fiance Anvita told me about her, and so she's got some great chat. Sharath, go in Australia. Is Payne going to lose the captaincy on this, or does he get one more chance against South Africa?
Look, I don't think he will lose the captaincy. You got to understand, in the Australian context, there's actually there's a saying that the Prime Minister is the second most important job in Australia, right? The reverence given to the seat of the Australian Test cricket captain is unparalleled. I mean, I think India is starting to give that level, a similar level of importance, but in Australia, that's the context, right? And Australia's had a tradition of really respecting and putting their captains on a pedestal, back from Alan Border, Mark Taylor, Steve Waugh, Ponting, and so on, right? So I think Tim Payne is definitely going to cop a lot of flack in years, and in some areas that's probably justified. But I think on balance, to answer the question, I don't think he'll lose his captaincy. But I think the selectors and the team management, they are going to be having a quiet word and saying this is the second time that Australia has lost to India in Australia under your watch. And so I think the clock is ticking. But in terms of that's whether he will retain the captaincy. But in terms of whether he should retain the captaincy, that's a different discussion altogether. But I'll probably allow you guys to weigh in first on that.
Yeah, look, I'll sort of weigh in. I don't think if I was a decision maker, I'd drop him as captain right now. You got to sort of finish up this cycle of Test cricket, which is basically one more series. You give him a chance to make up for it by making the World Test Championship final. I think they have to beat South Africa 2-0 in 3 tests, which is possible, very possible. But I just sort of posed this question to the other two guys, which would be, I'm all for friendly banter, and that sort of adds a lot to the game. A lot of you guys have all played with me. But is it really okay for Tim Payne to be having the kind of intent with his words, or the sort of, let's just say, the feeling that goes along with the words that he said, not purely the words that he said? Go to Prahlad first.
I think that was a big slip up on his part. But also you need to step back a little bit and see the context in which he was made captain as well. Does Tim Payne become a captain in any Australian team? Maybe not. But in the context that after the incident in South Africa, and they wanted to have a person who had a more statesman-like image, right? Something that could revive the faith in the Australian team. So one big thing that stood out for me was, even though he said what he said, he in a press conference apologized for it, which would be unthinkable in any other system, right? In terms of the Australian cricket team at the moment, Tim Payne, I think, is still the best wicketkeeper batsman that they have for the Test arena. I don't think Alex Carey is ready yet to fill those shoes. But if not Payne, then who? And Australia do not have that answer yet. Cummins is the only person that they've been building to that particular role. But I don't think there's anybody in that team who commands a position such that they are a certainty for the Test team and can be made captain. So they've got to stick with Tim Payne till they find a better leader emerge.
Would you go back to Steve Smith, Rashid?
I mean, the thing I'll say about Tim Payne is, like, long may he continue to captain Australia. Like, genuinely. Like, I hope he's captain in South Africa. I hope he comes to India, because I genuinely believe that, like, we're all teams are playing against, like, 10 people versus 11. Here you have a captain of an Australian team. He hasn't scored a Test 100 ever. Yes, he has great wicket-keeping skills, but, like, he's clearly messed up dramatic, like, behind the wickets a lot. So if I was kind of the Indian captain, I would be giving him serious lip about that. Secondly, if there was ever a situation where kind of the match was kind of, ending a draw, I would give him free runs just to kind of make sure he's in the side for the next game. And I would let him know that as well. Literally. I mean, he needs to be in the side for a long while. I mean, it's crazy. You have Matthew Wade there. As much I hate Matthew Wade personally, but, like, let him keep, and then you can get another bowler or another batsman. Alex Carey's there, top-notch batsman. Probably as good as Payne behind the stumps. He on merit, he doesn't deserve a place in the Australian cricket team, let alone captain. So I think, kind of, as a non-Australian, I absolutely want him to continue. I quite frankly had no issues about the banter, the chat. It's not as if kind of the Indians kind of are mum and take it quietly. I think we're great at giving as good as we get. I think in more instances, especially under Kohli, we're the ones kind of starting those conversations. So had no issues with the banter that we had with Ashwin or whoever. It's not a problem. I think kind of the reason why many people are kind of talking about is because he didn't back it up with actions, and his deeds in the field basically just let him down. I hope he continues, is the short answer on Payne.
I'll sort of go to Payne, and then here's my view on his captaincy. In terms of field positions, I thought he was relatively poor yesterday in particular. I'll bring up a few examples. Rahane got caught at third slip or fourth slip in the first innings. That's right? I'm not, like, dreaming this. He definitely got caught at third or fourth slip in the first innings.
Yeah, that kind of put that extra gully wide.
Right.
Wide
and so it seems so long ago, by the way, that Rahane edged through there about 3 times before he got caught. It took him a long time to do that. The second thing I think is, just on the same note, is a lot of times you saw when the ball really wasn't swinging, there was almost no ball that was going to first or second slip. It's not the worst thing in the world to move your first and second slip wider, as long as they're covering the angle that you think the ball might go in. So Rishabh Pant, for example, again, edged through there early in his innings. I think it was against either Cummins or Hazelwood, but it was through that vacant third or fourth slip region. So I think that's a big, big mistake, and he's going to have to rectify that. Secondly, to Lyon, captaincy comes in big when you've got a top-notch spinner bowling. Prahlad, you would know this. The captain has to back you with the right field because with a spinner particularly, your strategy can be so varied and different. I was shocked that there was no leg slip. Shubman Gill had a couple of times kind of shakily through there. Then he brought the leg slip in for Pujara, and Pujara was trying to work him through square leg as we were talking about. But there was no leg slip. There was no silly point. You had Kerry O'Keefe on commentary saying that Lyon doesn't like silly point. But then eventually they brought the silly point in after 80 overs. I also thought that giving Cameron Green just 1 or 2 overs in the whole day's play was poor. I mean, he's picked as a seam bowling all-rounder. Maybe he's a batsman who bowls, but he's really picked to be the fourth seamer. You have to give him more than that, especially on a day when Mitchell Starc was, off color. Hit for 21 and an over. So I thought Payne's captaincy was generally quite weak. To your point about being a statesman, yeah, I think sort of overall he's kind of taken over the captaincy, and a lot of guys look up to him, especially the new kids. But I would sort of say that at some point that experiment's not the right word, but it's sort of that sort of phase maybe has to end, and you move on to the next true captain, which very well could be Cummins, like you said, Prahlad, or maybe they go back to Steve Smith. Personally, I wouldn't go back to Steve Smith if I was them. He's already had a PR mishap this series with that whole, taking his guard. But yeah, I'd sort of summarize that section by saying that Payne's captaincy was pretty poor, and he was shown up big time by Rahane, who was tactically far more adept. Next section, and then sort of moving on quickly here, I want everyone to sort of give me very quickly what their 3 best moments were, maybe 1 from each test, and we'll skip the 36 all-out test. Sharath.
I'll let the other. I've been talking first every time. I'll let the other guys have a crack first.
If you guys are ready, go ahead. Otherwise, I can start.
I'll go. I'll say kind of number 1 is kind of Mohammad Siraj kind of crying during the national anthem. That showed unbelievable passion, showed unbelievable heart. I think kind of the second was kind of just after the win, how calm Rahane was. Just soaking it in, taking it in. And then kind of the third, actually, I mean, there'd be so many, but the third would be that Rishabh Pant 6, actually, of Lyon after the ball kind of spun out of the rough. Just that was like, just symbolizes what the new Indian team's all about.
3 great moments, Prahlad.
So for me, I'd say Washington Sundar and Shardul Thakur's partnership. That was a big one for me. Those guys in so early in their career, I sometimes worry a little bit now, because if they started their career on this high, how are they going to keep up the emotion or the value that they're going to get out of their cricket, right? This particular thing is going to stay on for a long time. That's number 1 for me. The second thing is Mohammad Siraj's bowling, but his 5-wicket haul. I think the way he bowled and the 2 wickets of Labuschagne and Smith were top notch in my book in that particular spell. And probably the third, and I'm going to say this, I'm really biased towards him. Rahane coming up with that 100 in Melbourne after Adelaide. I think that sets the tone and leading by example. And that was the immediate inning after the 36 all out, right? So that was a big thing for him to come up that 100 and get the first inning lead. And then we just moved from strength to strength. I'm a little disappointed with his showing in Tests, Sydney and Brisbane, but he basically put India on the Centurions map in Melbourne and in the tournament as well.
Yeah, excellent, guys. Look, for me, the top 3, you've already taken a lot of the good ones.
You stole two of mine, Prahlad, by the way.
But I've got a few. I think Ashwin and Bihari's stand in Sydney. I think epic, all the more special because both of them were battling some form of physical injury, right? Ashwin had a really bad back coming into the innings, and Bihari had a hamstring issue on the day. I think batting it out against a very hostile Australian bowling attack, and noting the haunted memories of Sydney 2008, right? So I think that's definitely up there. I think I'm going to say Shardul and Washington, their innings as well. That's a repeat. And the third thing, on a slightly different note, I think may seem relatively minor, but it's, I think, profound for me. Rahane's gesture to Jadeja when Jadeja ran him out in Melbourne. I think when Rahane went and just tapped him on the shoulder, I thought that was exemplary leadership personified in 10 seconds. And to me, that really stood out to me. And that I think that encapsulates Rahane's leadership, beautifully, right? Inclusive, humble, and he's achieved what I think every leader should strive to achieve, which is to bring out the best from your troops. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, been said a couple of times already, but sort of the big one I think was from the Melbourne Test was Rahane's 100. I think for a captain to lead from the front, that was gritty. That was top notch. To me, I felt something there. I was just like, this is the beginning of something special. And you guys have spoken about it, eloquently. So I'll move on to my second one. The second one, which I got touched a lot, is for me, the big thing about the series, the biggest takeaway is how our team has fought back. Whether it's with performance, whether it's with character, whether it's with, the ability to take body blows and just, stand there. But to me, and you guys know this about me, I enjoy guys who don't back down from a fight. So I really appreciated when Payne was sledging Ashwin and he said, "Can't wait to get you to the Gabba, Ash." And then Ashwin replied with, can't wait for you to come to India. It'll be your last series. To me, that was epic. Like, that was Ravi Ashwin, like, at his best. To get someone like him to say that, you really have to, get, I don't think he got under his skin, but you really got him going. And so to me, that was huge. And the third moment, I was going to say again, to me, actually was, Washington Sundar and Shardul's partnership. But I also want to sort of, maybe, since you guys have spoken about that already, I'll sort of go and say in general, I found both of them to be, in their own ways, such great finds for us. I mean, Shardul Thakur, he's a fighter. That guy, like, especially his heart that he had while bowling.
Yeah.
Not only was he the only guy who swung the ball in the entire test match, but just the heart. He came back up spell after spell for the captain and kept bowling hard. And Washington Sundar, I mean, he's the kind of guy I would love to have in my side. I mean, he just composure, looked like he was playing his 50th test match, looked like he was so calm at the crease. I mean, he looks like a test cricketer to me. I mean, all this, like, the fact that we picked him in T20 cricket, I'm shocked. I mean, he's a test match all-rounder. So I'd say just the way they handle themselves in their own ways would be sort of my three big moments. And sort of, maybe the last 5 minutes here, really quick, looking ahead, it looks like a good chance that we could make the World Test Championship final. Fans in Blue tour on the cards there, kind of everything else permitting. England series coming up, big series, got to win 2-0, 3-1, by a margin of 2 test matches is what I hear. Sharath, your thoughts on likely outcome there and sort of the dynamics with Virat coming back into the fold?
Look, I mean, with Virat coming back, I've expressed publicly my admiration for Rahane's captaincy style. Equally, I think it would be remiss to not acknowledge that a huge part of the current team's fighting spirit and competitiveness, and willingness to give it a all a big part of that is because of Kohli and what he brings to the table as well, right? So I think I'm hoping that Kohli has seen and as he's smart enough and mature enough to perhaps understand that a more inclusive style of leadership and leveraging Rahane's tactical thinking and calmness would actually significantly enhance Team India's prospects. So I think if we can achieve that particular combination of Virat's aggressiveness, competitiveness, and his cricketing prowess, along with Rahane's tactical brilliance and maturity, I think that's a very potent leadership combination, right? Look, in England, I mean, they've absolutely got to consolidate. I think they've got to go for a 3-0 victory. I think they've got to give some of these younger lads an honest crack at cementing this spot in the team. It's a very nice problem to have. I mean, assuming that all of the injured players get match fit, India's got almost enough to play 2 teams or a team and a half. So it is a selection conundrum, but it's a very nice problem to have. I'd like to see them be ruthless, learn from the team that just defeated Australia, who's famous for being relentless and ruthless. We can't live off our laurels. We've got to, if India really aspires to be a top test playing team, winning one series is not enough. You got to win it consistently, series after series. And Nick, you've already predicted that they won't lose the next 5 years. So,
yeah. So the characters, yeah, no, that's totally fair. Before going to the other guys, I'll jump in here. I think a lot of us had various views about Kohli's departure. I'll sort of sum up my views in hindsight, it's turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because his departure has meant that not only, like you said, has the leadership of so many other guys come out, but also we've discovered so many new test cricketers. I mean, India is perhaps the better side than India seniors, right? But I will say that, I echo your thoughts. He's built this team along with Shastri, who we criticize so often and so easily. But, this is, in my opinion, it's still his side. I admire Rahane for what he's done, and I truly hope that Virat takes a leaf out of Rahane's book, particularly when it comes to team selection and strategy on the field. 2 areas where I think Kohli can sort of get better at, if he was honest about it. And I think, to your point, the leadership group that's developing, Rohit's kind of now established himself firmly in the test side. Ashwin was kind of, coming up and really being a leader there in the second and third test. Bumrah is the head of the pace attack, it seems, even though he's only played 19 tests, whereas Ishant Sharma's played 100 tests. I think you go to Bumrah first for the sensible head. So there's a leadership group developing, and I really hope that Virat sort of taps into this, because that's the true, the best part about a captain like who succeeds, and in this case Virat, is if he uses the resources at his disposal, makes him look better. So I'd say that he should look at this as a very positive development, and just the first step in India's path to becoming the dominant test side that they should be. And like I said, predictions wise, I already predicted we're not losing for 5 years. So I think my predictions are sort of already set in stone. Prahlad?
How much money do you have on that, Nick?
None as of now, but I mean, if they make a market for me with Sharat, I should put something on it.
Well, I always believe you got to put your money where your mouth is. Right? So.
Prahlad?
All right. So in terms of, I think we've found a bunch of great cricketers over this series, right? 2 or 3 things that I'd like to point out for the England series. I think we have some kind of I won't say a problem, but a concern that we're not going to find the right balance in the tests in India. Jadeja would have, lent that, a finger spinner who turns the ball the other way. We don't have that in the squad with the quality of Jadeja, especially. Akshar Patel is there in the squad, but I don't see him making the first 11, given that you've got Ashwin, Washington Sundar, and Kuldeep in the squad ahead of him. So, but that gives me a problem about what combination of spinners to pick in the test team. The second conundrum is where to play Pandya. If can you play him as a pure batsman? If so, where to play him? Playing him below, is he too low? If he's not going to bowl, can we play one bowler less? That's another problem that we probably will carry. These issues might just get under the carpet because we might dominate in India over the next how many ever years. This is a great side. But on a very lighter note, I'd like to say that at least now, Chiteshwar Pujara will not be called out for lack of intent, and nobody's going to experiment with dropping Rahane in a test match. I think those are the two biggest takeaways for me now.
Fantastic. No, totally agree, Rashid.
Well, no, I think just to pick up on what Sharat said, he's hit the nail on the head. We need to be ruthless. I think, we start again with the England series. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. It's a good side. They're bad deep. So we need to kind of reset, be ruthless, execute our plans, and kind of, when we do have kind of, our foot on the throat, actually go for the kill. So I'm looking forward to the series, but I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. And I think expectations from Team India are now different. I think kind of a series win in Australia is considered to be, a humongous achievement, while I think people already expect a series win against England when you're playing at home. So I think kind of there's definitely that expectations to kind of, deal with. And that does weigh on you at times. But I think if we play sensibly, we play to our potential, there's no reason why we shouldn't be beating a strong English side.
Yeah, so I'll just sort of quick point on that is that England rely heavily in terms of batting on two players, right? Joe Root and Ben Stokes. And they're phenomenal players. Ben Stokes has actually been rested for the Sri Lanka tour so that he could be, in prime position for the India tour. But aside from that, I think the batting is promising, but lacking in experience. And I don't think these guys will be able to match up to our spinners. I agree with Prahlad that, Jadeja is going to be a huge, huge miss. With Jadeja and Ashwin, I mean, I would say 4-0 was like, kind of just, you can sign off on it right now. But without Jadeja, I think, Washington Sundar shown a lot of promise, remains to be seen as kind of playing in India, how he would fare. Conditions will be favorable, but he is a similar type of bowler to Ashwin, perhaps gets a bit more turn. And then Kuldeep, I think they have to play Kuldeep. This is kind of his, he's, potentially the X factor who could come in and surprise a lot of the English batsmen. A lot of the test batsmen have not really played him before, but I think the selection conundrum kind of comes down to which seamers you play, right? You've got 9 seamers now, of which I believe 7 or 6 of them are in the squad, and you possibly have room for 2. Yeah.
Only one. I mean, if Bumrah's fit, he plays. He's one of the first names on the sheet. So it's who partners him basically is really the question.
So can we just quickly whip up the preferred playing 11 for the English?
Yeah, I think the top 6 pretty much pick themselves now, right? Rohit and Gill to open, Pujara, Kohli, and Rahane at 3, 4, and 5, and Pant at 6. So the top 6 basically pick themselves. You can't drop any of them. Washington Sundar at 7, since there's no Jadeja.
Jadeja is definitely out. Yeah.
Ashwin in the same team. Do you play Ashwin and Washington in the same team? That's number one. And the other thing is just a thought for Kuldeep, right? Kuldeep was in the squad, but a net bowler was picked ahead of him in the final test match, right? Credit to Washington for performing the way he did, but I don't know what kind of confidence Kuldeep is carrying and what kind of confidence he enjoys from this team management and the skipper as well, right? So, and although he brings in that X factor in terms of being a wrist spinner, everybody is going to be turning the ball the same way. That's something that would make the spin dimension, unidimensional in some sense. So I'm a little concerned about the balance, as I said in the initial comment. And so it'd be interesting to see how they overcome this. However, having said that, you can bank on Ashwin, spinning a web in India, because and especially because the first 2 tests are in Chennai. If the pitch plays anything like a typical chip-off pitch, I don't know how many bowlers you're going to require, right?
As I said, the higher chance of him getting to 400 first than Lyon, and he needs 23, whereas Lyon needs 1. Yeah, I guess Ashwin obviously is a shoe-in. Bumrah is a shoe-in. You go with possibly Ishant Sharma, I think, because he's sort of higher in the pecking order. And that leaves 2 spots, whether you go with 2 spinners or 1 spinner and a seamer. I don't know. I would go with Washington Sundar and Kuldeep, but that means you leave out Siraj.
Yeah, and it's amazing, that we're even talking about Washington Sundar as kind of a absolute prospect for the England series. Like, he would have been not on anyone's team sheet before this test, and honestly, the way he batted as well, like he batted like a proper batsman. Like that pull shot that he played that went for 6 was Brian Lara. Like, I mean,
he is a proper batsman, and that's the thing. I mean, yeah. He is, and he can be developed into like a genuine, batting or bowling all rounder.
I mean, talk about like grabbing your chance, right? And like, and making it count. Like, I don't think there's ever been a better example of that than what Washington Sundar did in this test.
Absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely right. I'm also very keen. I mean, to me, I've always maintained, not to deride, outcomes for India in India. But look, India has a massive advantage, playing in India, right, for multiple reasons. But I've always held that the real barometer of gauging India's success, Test match success, is how they perform in England, South Africa, and Australia, right? So obviously we've done Australia, and now I think the next big test is how they perform in the England tour, which is obviously later in the year. So I think part of your selection for England at home also needs to contemplate how you're setting up for the selection for the away tour. And look, there's some players that you would play at home that you wouldn't necessarily play away. But sometimes, you want to give, like Shardul, for example, I think he'd be great in England because he's got the right pace and he swings the ball both ways. But you don't want to not play him at home and then suddenly use him in England because he's very untested. So does that mean that you actually give him a crack in some of the tests in India? And if yes, at what cost? Who are you compromising for that? So I think there's some interesting selection issues for Shastri and Co to work through there. But it's a great problem to have. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, Shardul also, like, I heard an interview and he's, for someone like playing a second test, he was talking about how he had the Lion had the field back for him and therefore he wasn't going for those shots. Very sensible. He's like, great shot selection, very sensible approach. And almost thinking like a batsman, because many batsmen would be like, look, I'm facing someone at 150, bowling bullets near my head. Let me just take advantage of Nathan Lyon and get a few quick runs. But he put his head down and kind of, really played Lyon out. And that partnership, as you guys said, I think kind of won us the test and the series.
His shot to get out yesterday definitely wasn't the most sensible, though. Yeah. I gotta admit, you put a few.
One most sensible thing they did after that, if you notice on the highlights or on the replays, they actually made sure it's over.
Yeah.
And that was so sensible. That's something like
I was gonna say, to me that may have been, as it came down to it, the most critical move that we made in the series, because if you look at the highlights, you can see that they actually crossed and Pant really ran hard. In fact, it was to our advantage that the ball was just hanging in the air for ages.
Exactly. And like actually, because Shardul actually had his head down for a second, and then either Pant called him through or he realized, and that was like honestly Hazelwood had a couple of balls, it was Saini, like Natarajan, he said he didn't even see the first ball he faced in the first innings.
That's why I cashed out. That's why I cashed out the bet, because I could see that for unfolding. But can I just quickly call out as well? Again, back to Rahane's leadership, and I don't know if this is a Rahane thing or a Shastri thing or whatever, but sending Pant in, promoting him both in Sydney and in Brisbane, right? And how that absolutely proved to be, an absolute masterstroke, right? And I think that just goes for the intent to win and to not mind losing if you actually go for a win, which is a very Australian-esque sort of attitude, which is why they've been the team that they have, right? So I think that's worth pointing out as well,
Absolutely. All right. Well, it sounds like we're all in agreement. We've gone through all the the various topics. Just want to thank all of you guys, and also sort of thank the larger group. The Fans in Blue has become a larger family now. I've got about 15 people who regularly come on our podcasts. It's a very active WhatsApp group, as you guys can imagine, with views from all over the world, but with one common purpose of supporting the men in blue and the Indian team. I got to say, this is sort of unprecedented, and most people possibly don't even realize how big this moment is. For these guys to go there and beat this Aussie team, to me was phenomenal, and words can't say enough about how big this is for Indian cricket. I'll leave it at that. Another fantastic podcast session. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Good night.
See you all.